Well, you can't get into the minds. It's difficult to get in the minds of people who left things written, because people write a lot of things, and they write in ways that are very self-conscious, and so you have to be skeptical about that as well. But there's an extra burden when you don't have letters from people. All you can do is to think about what it is that they do. And if it's all you have is the actions that they take, you have to use that. I mean, there's not anything that's perfect, but rather than just say, we don't have letters, we don't have those things, those kinds of things you normally use in history, that we don't do anything at all, I think readers understand the problem. They understand that you're dealing with people who are kept from keeping those kinds of records. So you use whatever it is that you have, and to try to pull it together. And I think, well, I mean, I tell a story about, Sally Hemings going over to France at age 14, and when she gets there, she has to be inoculated. And inoculation was a really scary process. They actually gave you a version of smallpox, not vaccination. It was a variolation. They actually gave you the smallpox virus, not the cowpox, is what they used for us. And you had to be sent away for 40 days. 40 days was made up from the Bible, out in the wilderness. It wasn't a scientific thing, but 40 days in quarantine. So you imagine a girl who's 14 years old. You come there. Somebody gives you smallpox, some version of smallpox. You're in a way, out somewhere by yourself with people who don't speak your language. And I don't know that I don't have a letter from her saying that was an intense experience or a scary experience, but I think if I tell that story, readers can connect to that. And a man came up to me once at a talk and said, when I was reading that, I was thinking about my grandmother, who came to the United States from Ellis Island, to Ellis Island from Italy when she was 16 years old. She didn't speak any English at all, and she was supposed to be met here by relatives, but he was thinking, about being alone. We're social creatures, and we rely on one another, and being alone in a situation like that. The story of Sally Hemings made him think of his grandmother, who was not an 18th century enslaved woman, but was a human being who was in a situation where she was by herself. And that's what you want to do. I mean, if you can't get the actual words, you want the person who's reading to make a connection, to say, these are people, these are human beings. And when I grew up reading books about slavery and reading books about, or Jefferson and other kinds of things, I didn't get the sense, well, I'm pulling punches, there was no sense that the African American people in the story were real people. That it was written in a way that was designed to distance them from the reader. I mean, even the use of dialect. I mean, Southern whites had accents, but you never see Southern white people's accents rendered in the way they actually speak in these books. It's a rare, unless he's a low class person.
Ashley.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's a way of distancing, making black people seem sort of otherworldly. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to do here is to give people a stake in these folks, so that they don't just see them as generic enslaved man and generic enslaved woman, and here are the experiences that you could expect they would have, and here's how they would respond. So it really is, and one of the things I want to say is that you often hear people say, well, we have to write and think about these things through their eyes, but they never say who they are. Mm-hmm. Their eyes usually are the most powerful people in the story, and most people tend to want to identify with powerful people. You're reading a book, they want to be the person who is acting, the one who's not acting upon. What I'm trying to get here is to have people see it through the eyes of the Hemingses. I mean, see it through Jefferson's eyes when it's appropriate, but to talk about Robert Hemings in old books, other books about Jefferson, Robert Hemings is described as Bob, Jefferson's slave. Well, Robert Hemings is his wife's half brother. And it changes how you think about the nature of that relationship, the nature of Jefferson's life, to know that he's going around with somebody who is a blood relative to his wife, a blood relative to his legal white daughters. And so those kinds of things, anything you can do to make you think that these are human beings here, all of them, who are operating in this world, not some category of master, some category of slave that is sort of like a cardboard cutout.